Hello and welcome to May's Crochet. I am Rachel. First, I apologize for not having a new video last week. We were out of town for the holiday. I did do a project and film it. I just did not get around to editing it, and I just didn't feel like doing it while we were visiting family and watching new episodes of Stranger Things, because I am not going to give up watching that to edit. Sorry, just not gonna happen. So I put it off, and I will actually do it next week. Timeline stuff is not gonna make sense because of some of the things I've already said in that video, but it's all still gonna be there. And today we are wrapping up everything I watched in November for my 2025 movie blanket. So if you don't know, but even if you do, every month I am aiming for 16 films, a total of 192 for the year. And every month it'll be a 4x4 square like this. At the end of the year, I will have 12 squares to make a 3x4 blanket. It's a very simple rating system. The yellow is a 1. It means I don't want to watch it again, or I don't really need to. Maybe it wasn't bad. If it was, obviously I don't want to, but maybe I just don't feel like I need to. Like I've seen it, okay, whatever, moving on. Pink is a 2. It could go either way. I could watch it again or I could not and be just fine. And then blue is I absolutely have to watch it again. I can't wait to watch it again, but I'm stuck doing other stuff right now. If it is a solid color like these are first time watches. And if it is one of those colors surrounded by purple, those are re-watches. And I believe that is all the information you need to know before I jump into it. This was October's, by the way. So my formatting for the series has been all over the place, but I finally, over the last couple of months, settled on talking about the movie while showing a separate video of me making the square for that movie, because talking and making the squares at the same time was messy. Like I would forget to say things, or I would forget to talk altogether, or I'd mess up the square, something like that. So I'll be standing over here while the video of me making the square plays on this side. This time I am using the vertical camera instead of the horizontal, so it doesn't seem as squished, I hope. And that is it. So let's get into everything I watched in November. Okay, so my first week of watches was very slim because I didn't watch anything that first week. I don't know what was going on. I think I was just kind of catching my breath after posting every day in October. And so my first 2 movies are rewatches because it was only family movie night movies that I watched that first week, and it was 2 Saturdays. Anyway, I had zero, and I mean zero intentions of rewatching the 2004 Mean Girls again this year. I watched it back in January after I watched last year's abysmal musical adaptation, and I needed a palate cleanser. For the week of Halloween at the girls' dance studio, they encouraged the dancers to wear costumes. They learn fun little Halloween themed dances with creepy music and stuff. Anyway, one of their teachers was dressed as Damien with the hoodie and the glasses, and she doesn't even go here. They didn't understand the reference, and so I had to fix that for them. And so we watched Mean Girls, first movie of the month. And then the second movie of the month was also a rewatch. This was completely out of pocket. I didn't expect this one, but Brad was looking around and he came across Honey, I Shrunk the Kids from 1988 or something. The girls enjoyed it. It was fun. It's not one I would have thought of. I definitely watched it a lot as a child, I remember, but when I think back of movies of that time that I've wanted my kids to watch, this wasn't one of them. And there's nothing against it. It's just, I don't know, it just didn't stick for me as much. So it's a fun movie. The girls enjoyed it. It wasn't a waste of time, but at the same time, it wasn't one I would have picked. But I think I had picked Mean Girls the week before, so I told Brett it was his turn, and he just randomly picked this when he saw it under family movies or something. So that is it for rewatches in this segment. Okay, so now I'm going to scoot over here so you can see me making my square right here. And the first new to me movie of the month was Materialists from earlier this year. It stars Dakota Johnson, Pedro Pascal, and Chris Evans. And she plays Lucy, who works at a matchmaking firm in New York City. And she has become very disillusioned with her job because, as the title would suggest, everybody's just very materialistic in what they're looking for in a mate. Looks, age, height is a big one for the women, age is a big one for the men, and then income. It's not really about love or personality. Are we going to get along and really have things to talk about and want to share our life with? It's just what's going to look good on paper. And that's about it for the job. I mean, there's more to the movie, obviously. But she starts dating Pedro Pascal, who is considered a unicorn because he's tall, he's rich, he's good looking, he's nice. He's not looking for a 20-year-old trophy wife. And he seems like a really good, decent fellow. But there is something missing for her. And of course, around this time, her ex, played by Chris Evans, comes back into the picture. He is a very, very struggling actor, and money was always an issue between the two of them. And it doesn't fall into a really boring trope of a love triangle exactly. She makes decisions that are best for her. Yes, surrounding her relationship to the men, but still at the end, it's not her picking which one she wants. It's more what do I want out of a partner. And overall, I really did enjoy it. It didn't fall into the tropes, which I like. It's not a comedy for sure. There's some actually pretty dark stuff that happens. I guess my biggest complaint, Dakota Johnson's always kind of a weird talking point for me because she does fall under the whole like Nepo baby discussion, which I don't jump on, like hating all of them just for having more opportunities than most, because I mean it's been going on for decades, but for some reason in the last like 5 years it's become a real sticking point. What I don't like about her is it's more of like a personal in real life thing where she just doesn't seem very interested in the fact that she's an actress. Like she comes across, and it might be a personality thing, but she just doesn't seem to care. She takes it all for granted. Whereas I think that's a really big problem for people who don't like these Nepo baby younger actors. It's like, just acknowledge what you have and be grateful for it, because you've got so much more than everybody else. And she's somebody who does act pretty entitled and doesn't really seem to care. So I think my personal feelings for her always kind of color how I see her in films. Not only that, but she has such that particular look with the long dark hair and the bangs in almost everything she's in, except for like the Suspiria remake, that I feel like half the time I'm just watching Dakota Johnson instead of her playing a character. And I've never really seen her play a wide range of characters. So it's hard for me to really get past that point. Also, Pedro Pascal was really boring. I think he was supposed to be. I think that was the point. Like, you have this wonderfully rich, good-looking, charming, not really charming, but nice guy. But he is boring. There wasn't like a serious passion there. And I think that was the point. I just kind of feel like Pedro Pascal, who can be larger than life, very enchanting to watch. He just wasn't in this. I kind of wish they had actually had somebody else play the part, because it was kind of like hard to watch him be that dull. And then Chris Evans was good as Chris Evans. Not as Chris Evans, but as the ex. So yeah, I enjoyed it. If you have an interest, definitely check it out. I could watch it again or not. You know, it's a 2. So it's one of those. Then there was Netflix's Frankenstein by Guillermo del Toro, starring Oscar Isaac, Jacob Elordi, Mia Goth, Christoph Waltz, and some other people. So for me, I read the book last year for the first time. Really loved it. Really, really, really loved it. And this is fairly not exactly close to the book. It definitely keeps the broad strokes there. But the more minor details, or not even minor details, but some of the smaller stories completely goes off book. It's hard to discuss. It really is, because I have such mixed feelings about it, which is why I'm giving it a 2, because I still don't know how I feel about it. It's been a while since I watched it, and I'm still like, I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely going to watch it again at some point, but I guess my biggest sticking point was I did not like the fact that Mia Goth played Victor's mother and love interest down the road. It was creepy. Really, really, really creepy. And 2, I didn't like how on the nose everything was. The biggest, I think, sin in my book was when there's a character who is dying after the creature comes back for revenge and wants to kill Victor, and a lot of people get in his way. And someone is literally dying, and with their last breath, they look at Victor and they're like, "You were the monster all along," or something like that. And I'm like, you know, you don't have to say it out loud. You really don't, because I feel like critical thinking and analysis is a dying art at this point, thanks mostly to social media, and now AI is making it worse. But they are no longer skills everybody possesses, and to just blatantly say the whole point out loud, it hurts. It really, really hurts. There's like no discussion. Like, here it is, right here on a platter for all of us. Now there's still stuff to dissect, but kind of the whole theme just put right out there for everybody, a little exhausting. However, I will say it's beautiful to look at, because Guillermo del Toro does that. He makes beautiful gothic horror type films for the most part. So gorgeous to look at. I've seen stills from the IMAX release. I'm sure it was incredible to sit through in a really big theater like that. And I did like that Victor was even more of a monster in the movie, in this version of the movie, than he was in the book. Just minor spoiler, but like in the book, the creature comes to life. Victor shows the tiniest sign of life. Victor freaks out and runs away. Like, what have I done? I can't believe I played God this way. I should not have done this. And he leaves. He gets very sick, becomes very delusional, gets better. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. In this version of the movie, of the story, he actually spends time with the creature after he brings it to life. He's actually very proud of the fact that he did this, but then the creature doesn't live up to his expectations of what it should have been intelligence-wise, even though he doesn't really give it a chance, which makes him even more of a monster. It's not that I played God, it's just that I didn't do it well enough. Wow. That was a really, really great change in my opinion. So it's kind of all over the place. I will definitely see it again sometime. If you have an interest, definitely check it out. Absolutely read the book if you haven't. And so that was Frankenstein. There's some stuff there to still unpack, so I need to give it another shot for sure. Okay, so this segment, I have 4 new to me films. However, 3 of them are going to be discussed kind of as one because they're all part of like the same story. Slide on over here. Okay, I have not watched anything Downton Abbey related since it ended in 2016 here in the States. I think we got it like the spring after it finished up in the UK over Christmas or whatever. Anyway, so for me, it's been almost 10 years. And the final, hopefully, movie came out a few months ago. And I was like, I've never seen any of the movies. I never got around to watching them. And I'm like, well, it's time. So I watched Downton Abbey. I think it's just called Downton Abbey, not like Downton Abbey the motion picture, but that's what it's considered. A New Era, and then the grand finale. I give them all 2s because even though the stakes are never high with these people for the most part, there have been some crazy things go on the show, but the stakes are never like super high, right? Like if I ever got in the mood to do a full 6-season rewatch of Downton Abbey, I would definitely finish it up with the 3 films. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I would. But these are not 3 movies I would ever watch on my own. So in the first one, the king, I think it's George V at this point, the king and the queen are doing like a tour and they're going to stay the night at Downton Abbey, so everything has to be spot on, perfect. Also, there's like an assassination attempt that one of the family members kind of gets caught up in. And then the second movie, they went to film at Downton Abbey. It's like a perfect filming location for some Hollywood film, and of course that's like for a lot of the older folk, but Mary, who will be more or less taking over since she's George the heir's mother, allows it because these people always need money. They have titles, they have land, but they never have any money. How many times have they gone completely broke on the show and now in the movies? Meanwhile, the Dowager Countess, played by the brilliant late Maggie Smith, has inherited a French chateau from a former... Well, that's the question. What was he to her? And so her son, the Earl, his wife, and another family member, or actually a couple of family members, go to meet these people, like this man's descendants, to figure out what was the backstory here. And it's all very fine and harmless in the end. And then the third one, this last one, the grand finale, is Robert trying to decide if he needs to step down as Earl and leave Mary in charge for good. While she is going through the scandal of a divorce in 1930, kind of a big deal, right? And again, I think they also need money at some point because they always need money. Yes, they do. Because Cora, her mother, who... what was her name? Shirley MacLaine, played by Shirley MacLaine on the show, has passed in between the last movie and this movie. And she was waiting on her inheritance to turn around and help put money back into the estate. Now that's no longer there, and Paul Giamatti comes in because he's screwed everything up. Anyway, again, the stakes aren't super high, but with Robert stepping down, wanting to step down as Earl, this is supposed to be the grand finale. And, they're all very polite. Like, the movies are just polite. They're harmless, very PG. Again, stakes aren't high, except they always need money for some reason. And everybody seems to end up fairly happy, except for Mary, who's now divorced. And there's, small spoiler, there's no, like, love interest for her by the end of the grand finale. So maybe she'll just be, a happy divorcee. I don't know. But widow/divorcee. Anyway, but like all of the servants have coupled off entirely. Everybody ends up really mostly happy in the end. So good for them. I'm glad I finally wrapped up all of this, but it wasn't like a big necessity in my life. If I had just finished with the show that finished 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been terribly distraught if I'd never seen these movies. So again, if I ever go through the show again, I'll watch the movies to finish it all off, but it's not that big of a deal. And so for the fourth movie, I did watch The Fantastic Four: First Steps from earlier this summer, which does play into the MCU. However, this group of Fantastic Four, it's not an origin story. They do go over like kind of what happened in the opening credits. However, it's happened and we've moved on. They're like superheroes on Earth now. They're mainly protecting just New York City. But what I really liked about this movie the most, it does take place on an alternate Earth, and everything seems to have stopped around the 1950s, 1960s, as far as fashion, technology, decor, everything is very mid-century futuristic. So that doesn't mean that they have no technology, but like the computers are massive. There are no smartphones, there are no laptops, there are no tablets, nothing of the sort. It is all very like supposed to be realistically based in that time for what these people end up doing, for what these heroes end up doing. And the Silver Surfer, played by Julia Garner, comes in and says, hey, there's this guy, Galactus, he's gonna come eat your planet, good luck. You're all gonna die, basically. And so, of course, the Fantastic Four are expected to go and stop him, because that's what they're supposed to do, according to everybody else. However, Sue Storm and Reed Richards are expecting a baby. She is pregnant. At the beginning of the movie, she finds out she's pregnant, and Galactus sees her and he's like, okay, I'll spare your planet if you give me your baby, so he can kind of take over this curse that I have and become this awful being that goes around eating planets. And they're all like, no thanks. And so then from there on, it's just them trying to figure out how to defeat Galactus, who is not going to be stopped at this point. It was entertaining. It's definitely better than a lot of the MCU movies I feel like have been put out. Not better than Thunderbolts. Nope. That is probably the best one they put out in a long time. But by a long time, I mean, I'm talking like the last Spider-Man movie, and then we're going back to Endgame, okay? So anyway, definitely entertaining. Most of all, I just really like the look of it. I think it was just a really cool approach to the MCU in this like alternate reality of Earth. So great aesthetic, enjoyable cast, and the plot is kind of so-so, very, very middle of the road, but better than a lot of what the MCU has put out recently, like I said, and yeah, I would definitely give it another watch. Okay, so in honor of the US holiday of Thanksgiving at the end of November, I did spend a week trying to find some Thanksgiving-ish movies to watch. There aren't a lot because, you know, you've got your horror month with October, then you have your Christmas month with December, so Thanksgiving doesn't get a lot. And most of what you do find, it's either like one scene in a movie. Some people try to make Addams Family 2 a Thanksgiving movie when there's like one scene. I think I've actually never watched it, but that's what I gather. And then it's never really, or very rarely, about Thanksgiving, right? It's all about more family, or it just takes place at Thanksgiving or something like that. So I did my best, but here are 5 Thanksgiving movies I watched. One of them was a rewatch because I did not remember that it took place at Thanksgiving, because there's really not a lot of Thanksgiving to it. There was a dinner at least. Some of them don't even have that. But we are going to start off with 1987's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So this is Steve Martin and John Candy. It is Steve Martin, who is on a work trip to New York. He lives in Chicago, though. It is Tuesday afternoon, and whatever executive is trying to make the decisions for his ad campaign is taking forever, and Steve Martin just wants to get to the airport so he can fly home. Unfortunately, a huge snowstorm has hit Chicago, and his plane is diverted. Well, along this trip, he meets John Candy, who's kind of the lovable, buffoonish big guy who is just kind of like happy to be there, you know? He has very little, on the surface, very little grievances to deal with, and it drives Steve Martin absolutely crazy because he's just so agitated about trying to get home, and this guy just kind of keeps popping up and doesn't make life easier, but they do ride a plane, a train, and multiple automobiles. So the title is not a lie. It is actually very humorous, and you know, sometimes like decades old humor does not translate to today, but I did find it very enjoyable. I mean, I could watch it again, but it's not like I'm going to make this a staple for every year around Thanksgiving. But what I find most fascinating is the fact that they decided to make it an R-rated film. It is a John Hughes film, but they did go with an R rating, which surprised me. And it's all down to one scene where Steve Martin drops the F-bomb about 20 times in 30 seconds. And I'm really surprised that they decided to go that route, because usually a PG-13 would mean a larger audience, more family-friendly, more butts in the seats, more money. But they didn't do that. So I was actually quite surprised by that. Otherwise, I mean, not a lot to say. I know a lot of people find it a classic. I enjoyed it. I could watch it again or not, but it's not like something that's going to stick out in my mind forever. It's not a necessity for me. Maybe if I'd watched it as a kid, possibly, but I didn't. So here we are. The most Thanksgiving-y Thanksgiving film out of the slot from 2023 is, of course, Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. Like, it's baked right into the title, and it does not mince words. It is absolutely Thanksgiving themed. So if you're unaware, back in 2007, Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino both got together. They made these very kind of crappy horror films, sci-fi horror, and they called it Grindhouse after like the Grindhouse films of the 1970s. Together, the two movies come together in a Grindhouse, but they each have their own separate title, and there were fake trailers before and in between the two, and one of them was Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. And he eventually made a movie out of it. Also, I believe Robert Rodriguez did make Machete. That is the trailer before the double feature starts. But I haven't watched Machete. I finally got around to Thanksgiving. It was something. I did enjoy it. It is a well-done horror film, because Eli Roth can make good movies when he wants. I haven't always liked just what I've seen of his, but this, for what it is entertaining. I would watch it again, but it starts off with a Black Friday sale, like when Black Friday starts at like 8 o'clock at night on Thanksgiving, and a massacre occurs at the store. Like, everything that can go wrong does go wrong, and people die. And it's, I mean, the circumstances are kind of hilarious of how they're playing it off, of how crazy people get, or at least used to get on Black Friday. I never partook, still don't, but a year later, somebody's coming back for revenge for what happened, and it's gruesome, but it also takes place in Plymouth, and these people are really big on their pilgrims and their Thanksgiving themes, their parades, these things like that. So it is absolute 100% Thanksgiving through and through, just Eli Roth horror style. Entertaining. Glad I finally got around to it. Maybe I'll get around to Machete one of these days. Maybe Rob Zombie and Edgar Wright will make horror movies out of the two other trailers, fake trailers they had. We'll see. But it was a good time. The only problem I have is once you find out who's behind everything, it kind of doesn't make sense. But it's okay, because that's not really what it's about. It doesn't make sense that you feel like that person was in other places when murders were happening. And it's only one person, so it wasn't like a tag team Scream kind of thing. I'm okay. Like, it was a little nitpicky, but yeah, whatever. Okay, moving on. And so then next is the only rewatch I have, which is Scent of a Woman from 1992. I forgot this was Thanksgiving themed, and it's really not. It takes place over Thanksgiving weekend. There is a Thanksgiving dinner, but that's about it. So it is Al Pacino as a blind veteran who is very crass, womanizer, kind of an asshole, not kind of, a lot of an asshole. And he is supposed to be kind of watched by Chris O'Donnell, who is a poor kid on scholarship at a very prestigious all-boys boarding school. And Chris O'Donnell has no money, no connections, nothing like that. He is trying to make money doing this so he can fly home for Christmas a month later. But the night before break starts and this whole weekend of his begins, he witnesses, along with another student played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, 3 other boys set up a prank for the next morning to destroy the dean's car. And so then Chris O'Donnell's character Charlie is then threatened with expulsion if he doesn't confess what he saw, but he doesn't have time for that. He's got to go take care of old Al Pacino, who's, again, an asshole. So the plan, he thought, was to stay at the house with Al Pacino. Al Pacino's like, no, we're going to New York City. And they spend the weekend in New York City because Al Pacino wants to spend a ton of money that he has been saving up for years to eat a great dinner, get an escort, multiple things. And so they do a lot of that, but it's also Charlie trying to figure out what he's going to do once he gets back to school on Monday, being faced with expulsion and knowing that Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's a very rich guy, or a rich guy's son with a lot of connections, probably is not going to face the same scrutiny that he will. Anyway, it's a really good movie. It's mostly about Al Pacino's performance, of course. I didn't realize just how 90s this felt, but he gives the big speech at the end. He comes and sits with Charlie during the Inquisition and gives this big speech about how Charlie shouldn't be punished and how the other guy is just, hiding in daddy's pocket. And he goes through this whole thing. And then at the end, everybody stands up and claps. And it's like, nobody knows you. Nobody knows Charlie. Charlie has no friends. He's this poor kid that nobody hangs out with. And all of a sudden, everybody stands and claps. It's a bit cringe at this point because we've kind of gotten past that. But this speech itself is entertaining. It's a good performance. It's fine to watch. And overall, it's a fun film. If you can get past all the misogyny, of course. But yeah, that's the only rewatch I have. Give it a shot. Great performance by Al Pacino. Chris O'Donnell's good too. Very young Philip Seymour Hoffman. June Squibb's in it. I swear that woman has not changed in 30 years. What is happening? Okay, so then we get into the 2 films that I just absolutely did not care for, and that's Home for the Holidays, which is a 1995 film directed by Jodie Foster, but it is starring Holly Hunter, Claire Danes, Robert Downey Jr., other people, Dylan McDermott. I can't remember her parents' name. Anne Bancroft was her mom. And I know the guy, Charles something, but I can't remember his last name. It starts with a D. Anyway, I'm not gonna look it up. But Holly Hunter is the oldest daughter out of 3 kids who has moved to Chicago. She restores art for museums. She's just gotten fired the day before Thanksgiving, and she now has to travel home and deal with her family who, they're a little, they're very overwhelming. Let's put it that way. For some reason, her 16-year-old daughter is staying home. I have not figured that one out. There's absolutely no reason for it. She's just not going. And she's like, okay. And then the grandparents aren't where is our granddaughter? So her brother is Robert Downey Jr. He is very chaotic. extremely chaotic. And he's brought a friend played by Dylan McDermott, who she thinks is his boyfriend because he is gay, but it turns out he brought Dylan McDermott for her because he's not gay. Dylan McDermott isn't. And is that his name? Yes, it is. Anyway, and yeah, it's just kind of them. And then they also have a younger sister. I cannot remember what her name is, the actress, but she's kind of the really try-hard daughter who wants to be the perfect daughter for her parents, but they kind of overlook her for their successful big city daughter and their gay son. So, yes, there's a lot of homophobia in this as well. But it was just awkward more than anything. It was just more cringe to watch this family dynamic than funny. And it just did not stick for me. And the relationship between Dylan McDermott and Holly Hunter as the film progresses and she realizes, oh, you're not my brother's boyfriend, you're here for me. The relationship feels incredibly forced, which it is. But I mean, she didn't have to engage, but she does. I mean, I don't see these two being together. I don't see, I mean, attraction, physical attraction, sure, but everything else, no, I don't see it lasting. It was not for me. Yeah, not gonna watch that again. And now we get into probably the worst one I watched. There's absolutely no real Thanksgiving in this. It is called House of Yes. It takes place on Thanksgiving where, okay, keep it together. Parker Posey plays a mentally unstable woman who believes she is Jackie Onassis. Dresses like her all the time, particularly the pink outfit that she had on when her husband was murdered, and she is obsessed, and everybody just kind of gives into her whims. I think that's why it's called House of Yes, because the mother is very complicit in a lot of what goes on. So she has been in and out of an institution. She is now home, and they're trying to get through the holiday. Her twin brother is coming home with his fiance, which is a big problem for the holiday, and then Freddie Prinze Jr. is their younger brother. The fiance Tori Spelling, and the brother's Josh Hamilton. I can't remember who the mother was, and I don't think I'd ever seen her before. This family is messed up, okay? It gets pretty gross and awkward. Think Lannister twins, because that's what this is as well. But first they reenact JFK's murder. Ugh. And there's not even really a Thanksgiving. Sure, everybody's home on Thanksgiving, but there's a really bad storm. The power goes out and there's no dinner because everything was still cooking. And the mom's like, well, we might as well just go to bed. And Freddie Prinze Jr.'s like, it's early. And she's like, too bad. They don't go to bed. Well, they do, but anyway. Besides that ickiness, which, what the hell, it is also just bad. It's bad storytelling. It's bad acting, like incredibly painfully bad acting. I have to wonder if any of these people had ever spoken to another human being before this movie started, because that's how bad it feels. Like nobody knows how to carry on a conversation properly. It's awkward. It's gross. I hated everything about this. Yeah, it was really quite terrible. And I'm sure it's supposed to be satire of some sort. No, we can have satire without twincest, okay? Yeah. So it was gross. 0 out of 10. I like quirky, but this was something different and I did not care for it at all. That is everything I watched in preparation for Thanksgiving, and who would have thought Eli Roth would come through with the most Thanksgiving movie, right? Didn't see that one coming, but here we are. Yeah. Okay, let's round out the month. Sorry, out of these last 3, there's only one new to me film, and that is, of course, Wicked for Good. Is it as good as the first? No, of course. It's not, and I knew this. I've never seen the stage play, but I've heard enough people talk about it being a weaker second act, which is what the second film was. And I know of many shows that can sometimes suffer from a weaker second or third act. And this is one of them, but it's not horrible. It's just that the music's not as good. It feels rushed. A whole year has passed since the end of the first one, and you're trying to play catch up, and it's like, wasn't everybody at school and now everybody's not at school? What is going on? Like, how long does a degree from Shiz take? Because I understand why Alphaba left. Why is everyone else gone, you know? So that didn't make any sense, but that's okay. It's not about Dorothy, so I knew that it wasn't going to be about Dorothy. I knew that the Wizard of Oz stuff was just going to be a very minute part of what happened, and that story wasn't going to be shown much at all. I kind of already knew what happened, even though, like I said, I've never read the book, I've never seen the stage play. I kind of read ahead, you know. But I did enjoy it. It just didn't hit the way the first one did. However, of course it gets a 3 because it's really just the second half of one story. So yeah, I'm gonna watch it because I'm gonna rewatch Wicked, which I still find pretty perfect. And this, definitely not perfect, but it's definitely a smaller part of a larger whole, and it will get watched again for sure. But yeah, that's all I got. Sorry, I'm not gonna spoil anything for anyone else in case you haven't seen the things or know the things. So I don't want to get too into it because, like I said, it is the back half of a story. So I feel like anything I say beyond what I've already said is gonna be spoiling it. So I'm gonna stop here before I run my mouth off and do some damage. Okay? And then we have a rewatch. The Fantastic Four: First Steps. Okay, look. I did not mean to rewatch this movie so soon. It wasn't my choice. I mean, I could have gotten up and left because I have free will. But we were at my in-laws. We got there on Tuesday night before Thanksgiving. We had dinner. Not Thanksgiving dinner, but, you know, they fed us. And then we sat around and talked to them. My father-in-law's, you guys want to watch something? And he turned on the TV, and this came up under, you know, recommendations or something. He's like, have you guys seen this? And I've been the only one to see it because nobody else in my house had seen it. And I was like, oh yeah, I've seen it. It's pretty good. You know, told him exactly what I said, you know, earlier in this video, whatever that was about, you know, the aesthetic and better than a lot of MCU stuff. And he's like, cool, you want to watch it? And everybody's like in agreement. So I sat there and I watched it again. And I still stand by everything I said before. So I had zero intention of rewatching it 9 days later, but if I really didn't want to, I could have gotten up and gone and done something else. I don't think it would have hurt anybody's feelings too badly. So yeah, whoops. So we got home from our Thanksgiving trip yesterday, which was Saturday for me, and we started off our Christmas season of a family watching with The Nightmare Before Christmas. We normally watched around Halloween. We, for some reason, did not this year. And so our youngest was like, well, since we don't watch it at Halloween, can we go ahead and watch it for Christmas? Which does take place mostly at Christmas. So it does make more sense, right? Anyway, if you know it, you know it. If you don't, check it out if you want. If not, that's your business. I don't care. I will say about The Nightmare Before Christmas, I love the music so much more than the actual film itself. It's one of those soundtracks I could listen to a million times, and I watched the movie and it's entertaining, but I honestly feel like the soundtrack is superior. But that's all I have to say about that. I mean, I'm still clearly gonna watch it over and over and over again, but that's all I have to say about that officially now. And that is it for November. And that's a wrap on our next to last video of this series. Very exciting. So we just have December to go. I can't believe the year has already gone by. I'm shocked. But expect a lot of Christmas movies and expect a lot of rewatches. Might get around to something new that maybe has hit streaming or video on demand from this year that I'm hoping to watch before the end of the year, but it's not like there's a expiration date on this. So yeah, probably a lot of Christmas movies. That is it for this video, however. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube things, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!